I'll just put it in chat.
Oh, sure.
So everyone can enjoy
There it
this.
is. Yeah.
Oh boy, the shape of the sickness.
It's surprisingly good.
Yeah.
Oh, wow!
Yep. They had to keep that part in there because
you can't not.
You
say disturbed, your brain goes, oh, wow!
Yep. Otherwise, you gotta turn in your mashup credentials. Like, just don't even bother anymore.
Yeah, well, I'll add this to the old watch later list.
Mythos Busters, investigating the mystery, monsters, and madness of Arkham Horror, the card game.
Hello and welcome to episode 104 of Mythos Busters. I'm Sean. I missed you guys last time. Joining me tonight is Scott. Hey, Scott.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. I also missed you.
Oh, it was rough.
Felt off.
It did.
Off.
You know what? And okay, so like I'm going to be real personal with you guys for a second here. I barely listen to podcasts anymore. I hate it. I used to consume them voraciously, but for some reason, when I started working from home and when a few other things with my job happened where I'm less available to just zone out, I just stopped consuming podcasts. I'm not even through the episode that I missed, and it breaks my heart.
Wow.
Well, I know what I'm doing before bed tonight.
That insult I throw at you right at the very end, then it'll be a nice surprise.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yep.
Joining as well is Ian. Hey, Ian.
Hello.
And how are you on this wonderful Friday night?
I'm doing good. Ready to talk about some Arkham. And, I think this will be our 104th best episode altogether. So that's my conservative prediction.
I took 3 trauma at the thought of ranking our episodes.
Oof.
That's a hell of a thing.
I mean, it's musical episode 1.
Right? Yeah. That's number 1.
Dot.
Episode 100 is probably number 2 if you include the post-show stuff.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Big Kahuna says salty by nature. Goddamn. Like, I appreciate that me just being real with you guys about how frustrated I get sometimes is relatable, but also, like, I don't know how I feel about the fact that it's basically my persona, apparently.
Moanfest is probably up there, too.
Yes. Anyway, not joining tonight is Nick. He is in a new play, so he's doing rehearsals, which is cool for him, and that's exciting, but he's not going to be here tonight.
He's one of those drama kids.
Yeah. One of them theater thespians.
Thespian.
That's the one. The out of context quotes. That was fun.
And roast the host.
That was good. Just all the masturbatory ones, I guess, are like I'll admit it. It's fun. Anyway, we got a great episode for you guys tonight. We're gonna do a little bit of catch up and a little bit of Mythos Busters community news. And then we're gonna keep it real light and casual tonight. We're just gonna have a nice little revisit of a topic we did. I think it was back in like episode 47, if my memory of the notes are correct.
Really? Feels a long time ago.
Yeah, that really does. I thought we had done one more recently than this, but I don't know. Maybe our notes are wrong. But anyway, we are gonna talk about current underrated cards and how such a thing happens. And then we'll round it out with some tentacle time, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it, boys. So first, I just always want to update everyone. Dissonant Voices is caught up through Horror in High Gear. This is our voiceover project, now integrated with Arkham Cards, the app. If you're a patron at any level, you can hear our dulcet tones reading you the horrifying prose of one MJ Newman. And yeah, it's pretty good. We're going to get caught up on Innsmouth right quick here. As mentioned last time, Return to the March to Madness is live. We are almost to the voting rounds. So,
yes.
let's see here. The prediction bracket submission window closes at 11:59 p.m. Central Time on April 27th. And then we're going to move to the voting round. So if you haven't got in your bracket yet, and we've already got more than we got last year total.
Yes.
Go out and do it. A lot more.
Actually.
Yeah, significantly more, which is really cool. I'm super, super excited once this thing gets rolling. And we have a channel, a dedicated channel in Discord where everyone's already talking about it. And yeah.
I'm more excited for this than like actual sports.
Me too. But that's like for me, it's also not saying much.
It's true. Same for me.
But we are very excited. Anyway,
more interested in a boiled egg than sports, so I don't know.
Well, when you get your bracket in, the actual voting starts on April 30th. Each round is only going to last a few days, so make sure to check the schedule. As well, I think emails go out to the email you submitted with. But either way, check it out on our website. It's mythosbusters.com/march-2-madness. And that link is in the show notes if you need it with all the info you need. And a reminder that, Scott, you and I, in an excruciating and embarrassing manner, made our predictions live on stream.
It was like, I'd rather pull out my fingernails, maybe. It was pretty bad.
It was super, super painful.
I still need to watch that.
See, the problem is when I start to over-agonize over a decision, you can go one of two directions. You can be the analysis paralysis person where you sit and you really do hammer out what you think is the ultimate outcome. Or you do what I do, where you're like, okay, I could do that. Or I could just fire from the hip and pray. And that's what I did with a lot of my picks. So I'll be very interested to see if my bracket fails horribly.
I think it's so interesting comparing choosing the bracket versus building the tier list, because the tier list is like there's 10 slots or 10 tiers, right? And like if someone doesn't make it into number 2, what you think should be there, there's probably room in tier 3, and like it's gentle, you know what I mean? But when you're picking the bracket, it's like 1v1, one person's getting knocked out. There's no like tier 2 versus tier 3, it's yes or no. And that is just,
and there's no nuance to it because of that. It's just straight up. One of these investigators comes out on top. Who's it gonna be?
Yeah, Anyways, it was a lot of fun to do that. I'm sure we're gonna. Oh wait, we don't have anything else to do. No, are we gonna do voting live? Probably not. We won't vote. Not
for the rounds, but I do think. Well, for sure, we are gonna do the big reveal of the winner live on Twitch.
Yes.
So if that's of interest to you, it was a blasty blast last year when we did it. And I've said this a couple times, but like when I think Justin mentioned, it might have been you. I can't remember how it happened, but when it was mentioned that, you guys should do that on stream, I'm like, oh, what, really? Who's going to want to watch that? But it ended up being so fun. So I'm super excited to debut the winner again this year on stream. So check out our Twitch channel if you haven't already. Yeah. So that's March to Madness. Looking forward to it.
So much fun every year.
All right, boys. Before we dive into our Hotmail messages for the week and dive into the meat of it, I did just want to check in with you guys real quick on what y'all been playing.
I have been continuing my campaign with Casey. We are just about to go into the Maelstrom with our Amanda and Silas campaign. I have so much XP to spend, and I honestly don't know what I'm going to spend it on. I've hit top build, and I don't have room for anything.
Justin and I are in the same spot with our campaign. I'm playing Gloria, he's playing Silas, and I swear to God, it was almost verbatim what you just said. Like with Silas at this point. It's like, what do I even buy now?
Yeah. And then I have taken a solo Yorick through Return to Dunwich for no other reason but I wanted to play Yorick and see how he does solo. He's been doing okay. It's a little not hard to get clues, but just trickier. But yeah, it's been fun. there's a lot of investigators that I've obviously tried solo, but I haven't really put them through the paces, and a lot of those tend to be the ones that have lower intellect. So now I'm kind of going back and taking some of the lower intellect ones through a full campaign. So yeah, I think just the card pool, the way the card pools are, like every class can now cheat clues or get clues when their investigator doesn't have decent intellect. So it's fun just playing around with that, and Yorick is just super fun to begin with. So
yeah, I do love me some Yorick. I too have actually fallen in a decent amount of true solo lately. I have, for some reason, and I think that reason, you can spell that reason TTS, I have had an interest in just sit down, quick play games, because that's honestly what solo is to me. Like I somewhat enjoy the challenge sometimes, and other times it makes me salty as hell. But the just how quick and just streamlined solo is. I have huge respect for that. So I've taken solo Diana up to the current Innsmouth scenarios. But the one I really, really, really want to talk about. Okay. So I was very late to this party, and I realized that a lot of you might know this already. But Parallel Agnes is really good. So I finally put together a Parallel Agnes build, and as is my wont, I took her through Return to Dunwich. And so there's a few things to say about Parallel Agnes. I do think it's a little bit more thematic for kind of how she feels in like 3rd edition, and that idea of like blood magic. It's an interesting dichotomy between her core design versus this new one. But so let me see. Key cards in the deck that I want to mention, because this deck is like super duperly fun. Actually, let me just pull up the list here. That probably would have been a thing to do. But the whole point is like, okay, so I want to build this deck to actually take advantage of the relic, right? Because there's the heirloom, the heirloom of Viperborea. Like I have panned it so often and so frequently as just marginal at best. And I've tried in normal Agnes to kind of make it work, and I guess for Justin and Iron Man, it did decent work. But holy cow, I took Relic Hunter and the Hallowed Mirror and Backpack.
Okay.
So and I also have Sword Cane in there. So those are my items that Backpack grabs. And okay, first of all, holy shit, level 2 backpack is just amazing. It's great.
Oh yeah, I love level 2 backpack. If you build right for that card, chef's kiss.
So you do this thing where you hopefully find either an early backpack or an early heirloom. God, I don't know why I keep mispronouncing that. You find an early heirloom, get it down, start doing your thing. So I've tried this deck a few different versions of this deck. I keep thinking to myself, okay, there's gonna be a really cool mystic who wants to play like the spell events and use Diana Esperance and like Robes of Endless Midnight to take the cost off of it. And like there's got to be a cool deck there. I tried it in Marie, didn't quite work. Tried it in Diana, it was a little too fiddly. But it is so at home in Parallel Agnes, you guys. It is so at home. What happens with this deck, since you have a 25 card deck to start, is that if you are able to get the heirloom out somewhat early and kind of get a draw engine going, you can get down to like, 5-ish cards pretty consistently, fairly quickly. And then what happens is magical, because then you're in this place where as long as you've got good pace on the scenario and you're not on your heels, which I never was in this campaign, luckily, you can play Soothing Melody, cycle it, draw 2 cards, and just keep putting it back in your deck and drawing cards and keep healing and keep the train rolling. And Diana Esperance is perfect for this deck because she's got that 3 health. Hello. So anytime you want to play the event that you put on Diana, like if you've got your Spectral Razor, or I have Time Warp in this deck now, you can put the damage from Parallel Agnes's ability to reduce its cost on Diana. And it's just, oh god, this deck was so fun. So here, let me actually put this in the chat here and share it in the show notes, because holy cow. If anyone has been on the fence about trying Parallel Agnes, here's a deck for you. It's very fun and very effective, even in solo. And it was just a really, really great time.
I will try it out, because that sounds like my kind of deck. So
yeah,
I will try it.
Truly gives you the vibes of being like a spell slinging sorceress. Like once you get down to that, essentially once you get your kit out and all you're doing is playing spell events and recycling them and then drawing, because again, when you have the heirloom down and you play Soothing Melody, you're drawing 2 cards off of that every time. And oh man, anyway. I can't gush enough about it. It was a blast of a campaign, so highly, highly recommend.
Awesome.
Ian, how about you?
Well, I haven't been having as much fun as Sean, clearly.
Well, you haven't been having as much Sean as fun either.
Yeah. Give it time. I have been playing a little game called Trying to Find the Right Trish Combination. And I've talked a little bit about my kind of face check experience with Trish and how that hasn't gone well, and it's kind of tainted my view of her. And so I was like, okay, let me get some two-handed going through TFA. I've tried a few different combinations and haven't quite found the one I wanted. And it's actually, I don't think it's Trish's fault. It's been her partner's fault more so, like not being able to handle enemies as well as I would like. And also just the kind of ways that TFA can mess with you just in general. So first I tried Trish with, who was first up, with Tommy. Because I was like, let me play someone else who I haven't played a ton. So I tried Tommy and tried this Tommy the Tank deck. And it was fine, but for some reason it just wasn't quite clicking that partnership. I said, okay, let me try Yorick instead. So let's do Trish and Yorick. That was fine too, but not quite what I wanted it to be. Okay, now let me bring in a little investigator named Diana. So now I'm trying Trish and Diana, which out of the 3 so far, that one has worked the best, although it hasn't quite gone the way I wanted it to. And I just don't know what's happening. Like, objectively, I know how strong Trish is. It's like not a matter that I think she's a bad investigator or something. Like, I don't know what's going on. And a lot of people have this thing of like comparing Trish and Finn, which I see the comparison. Obviously, they do similar things. They have some overlap in terms of card pool. I myself still prefer Finn, and I don't think one necessarily replaces the other. But again, I don't think there's anything wrong with Trish. She's super, super powerful. But I don't know what's happening, guys. It's just not working for me, and I don't know why.
Look, man, not everything's for everyone. It's fine. It's chill.
Yeah.
Like, what isn't popping for you? Do you find that like her ability's not worth it very often, or like what's not clicking?
I think
I have found her to be pretty good. I don't know if I'm gonna be like a Trish stan, but
sure. I think some measure of it was piloting, honestly. Not all of it, but some of it at least was like, I think maybe because I am such a Finn player, I was trying to play Trish in the same way as you play Finn. And that's not always the case, because Trish has some elements where she's like Roland, where you might not want to just clear the location of clues, for example. You might want to leave one there for the next round, so that if an enemy pops up, you can trigger the ability, right? But with Finn, it's kind of a different game where you just plow through as fast as possible. So I think that was part of it. Once I adjusted that, then I started having better success with her. But again, I think the other part of it may just be the decks I'm pairing with her. Like the last couple of games, I think it was more about the other deck not functioning as well, not so much about Trish. And Brother Zagon in chat saying Silas with Trish. You know, I was actually having that thought. a little bit ago, because I was thinking about for TFA I think it's also the campaign I'm playing as well, TFA specifically. Like, I kind of wish my enemy like fighter deck had more agility going for it, and the investigators I've tried so far are not like high agility people. So I think maybe that's where I'm falling off. If I tried like a Silas paired with Trish, or there was someone else I was trying to think of. I could even see like a Skids with Trish, like that agility and combat combo. So I think maybe that's what it is. It's more so like the partner.
Well, I can confirm that Silas and Trish works pretty well. I had a game where I had a pretty cool, because once Trish takes in the know, she levels up a decent amount. Like, that is a really, really good Trish card, especially if you've got someone like Silas who can get a good token pull on a nimble and then just like open up the rest of the map. And specifically in the Silas deck, because I was pairing it with Trish, I took a card that I rarely take. I honestly can't remember if I put it on my underrated list now, but I'm mentioning it here, preview, is Bait and Switch. Because if you open up the map in such a way, and then you can bait and switch an enemy and push it into a location with clues, and then Trish just clears it up. That's pretty sweet.
I also found for me with Trish, because I want those clues sometimes back on locations. Is it Forewarned? The Seeker cancellation?
Yeah.
I've been loving that in my Trish deck. So
maybe even like maybe a cheeky Malison with Trish. Get that thing back on there.
Yeah, I mean, you could. Malison's great. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'll have to try out some other partnerships. I think, part of the problem is TFA, the whole, I mean, most of the people listening to this cast know this by now, but just that vengeance piece of it, that it's hard for a killer deck somehow if they're just straight killer decks, because you can't just, I mean, you can kill everything that moves, but you might regret it later. So the killer decks in TFA don't necessarily look like killer decks in other campaigns.
Yeah.
All right, boys. Well, let's move into the hotline this week. So we did get a couple of cool responses that we'll throw in here. So if you'll remember, the last prompt was, which role do you like playing and why?
Hey, Mythos Busters. Forgot to call the other times, but in response to your question about which role you like to play, I tend to play support, not pure support, but I tend to really enjoy the team aspect of the game a lot, and I'm often playing with people who don't have as much experience with the game that I do, or, you know, it's their first time playing through Carcosa or something, and so it's like, yeah, here, let me take on the monsters, let me run interference, you go do whatever you want to do. Hell, I'm in a campaign right now where I'm playing as Tommy with a friend of mine who's playing as Amanda, and just straight up, I'm taking all the damage, I'm taking all the horror. I've got 2 solo battles on Amanda, so I can absorb all of it, and I have died in 3 of the 4 scenarios we've played. But Amanda survived, and in a lot of instances, that's more important to me. I don't know. I like being self-sacrificial guardian sometimes, but hey, it's what it is. Thanks for all you do. Take care. Bye.
Man after my own heart. I love playing support, and I also like that type of build, the tanky type build. I feel like doesn't get talked about a whole lot because you have to play it differently. You just straight up have to legitimately play differently when that's your goal. And that's how you squeeze the most out of it. So yeah, that's sweet. Love support.
I also love this type of role, and it could be kind of like you're kind of like a killer, kind of support, but basically clearing the way for the other people to do their thing, and clearing the way, meaning mostly taking on the enemies. Like, so as he was talking, I imagined back to my high school football days of all things, and I played center, so I snapped the ball. For those who don't play the footballs, but there was this one play that we had, and we called it jumbo, and then we had different lanes. Okay, I'm explaining way too much. Basically, the person who ran with the ball, we would bring on 2 of our actual defensive players, so our linebackers, and we'd put them in basically in the backfield in the offense. So when I snapped the ball, the person who was running with the ball had two giant linebackers lead blocking through the hole they were going through.
Right.
And I just remember whenever we had this play, because they'd run so close to each other, the ground shook as they ran past me.
Nice.
And that's how I feel like it is, where you have, like the seeker, kind of like in when we played TFA Iron Man. I remember you guys just let Ursula do the clue thing. Mm-hmm. You guys just do stuff around the map and just, make it clear for me to just
get things out of the way.
Right? Like, I'm going to come in and just, like, in football, it's like the ball guy is going to run and get points while these two buffoons in the front just smash into things, right? Like, and make so I love that role too, being the smasher. I'll just like, what's a victory point? I don't care. Here's guns. Pew pew. So, yeah.
I think that playing Clover and playing straight damage, you do that a lot, especially if you play, solo or two-handed. Uh-huh. But high count multiplayer is really the only place you can play support viably, like really viably. Uh-huh. And I just dig that. I'm always healer in MMO. Like I will always volunteer to be healer first. I don't know what the hell's wrong with me.
I also like being the person who can also like you mentioned, tank, but also cancel stuff. Mm-hmm. So you just have one player that you're kind of protecting, who's your quarterback or whatever, mm-hmm. and you're just like, protect this person, take their enemies, move over and engage, and he'll attack me this turn, but it allows you to keep moving. Mm-hmm. I'll cancel that treachery for you, even though mine sucks. Yeah.
The inherent power of the engage action. Yep. Don't let any internet zealots tell you otherwise.
That's the fun thing about the support role in this game, is I think we've already talked about like 4 or 5 different support options, like ways of playing support. And mm-hmm. there's also like just like almost like a cleric in an RPG where you're doing healing and that kind of thing. Or there's like in what I was playing in our TFA Iron Man with Rita, which is like the evade tank, just like clearing lanes by evading people and just kind of clearing the paths for everyone. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of, and I thought it was interesting. He was talking about in the call about for new players, like playing that role for them and supporting what they're doing. 'Cause sometimes when I'm thinking about new players and thinking about what's best for them, I think it can go a few different ways depending on who you're playing with, obviously, and what kind of player they are. But for some new players, like, it does work for them if they want to play like Guardian and killing stuff, because it's pretty straightforward. But on the other hand, like, dealing with enemies is kind of a potentially stressful part of Arkham, because there's a lot of pressure on you to deal with them, and if you don't, things go bad quickly. So I do see that, like, if you're taking on that role, it might be helpful for a new player who doesn't have to worry about, and they can go and like do clues and feel good about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, let's get to the next one.
Hey, Mythos Busters. My name is Chris, Big Kahuna 216 in the Discord. I figured I'd call in and give you some feedback on your question, which I really like. My personal favorite role to fill when playing Arkham is as the dedicated Clover. I don't get to play that role often, as it's my girlfriend's favorite role to play as well. When I do, the reason I like to play the Clover is that gathering clues is generally how you advance your victory conditions. Without them, you tend to just spin your wheels a lot. Killers, dodge tanks, and controllers are there to clear the way for the Clover to do their job. It's not flashy like attacking 6 times with a switchblade like Tony, or using Olive, Dark Prophecy, and Grotesque Statue all on one single shriveling test to ensure success. I generally think of cloovering as an exercise in maximizing efficiency, which I love. There's just a satisfaction for me in steadily grabbing clues. It's no surprise that my favorite class is Seeker. As an additional thought, I had a topic from which you guys might get a few minutes of fun discussion.
No promises.
What has been the worst shape one of your investigators has been in a campaign? Not counting when they've been driven insane or killed due to the scenario resolution. My personal worst was during my Face Check TFA campaign. My friend was playing a pretty standard, for the time, Fin deck, I had decided to try out a lightning gun Zoe. We had around 20 vengeance going into Shattered Aeons, and Zoe had 9 trauma, 5 physical and 4 mental. We managed to make it to the last act, but died tangling with Boss Ichtaka and Boss Alejandro at the same time. Anyway, thanks again for everything you guys do. I look forward to hearing this on the podcast. Bye.
Well, look forward to right now.
So I guess for me, I tend to play a little bit more defensively most of the time. So when I lose, I tend to lose by dooming out. Except, I don't know, in TNA, my Amanda's not doing so hot. 2 trauma, 2 scenarios in.
I was going to say my worst campaign is whatever one I'm recording for Abandoned and Alone, because as soon as I hit record, everything goes bad.
Yeah, I can see that.
I had a solo mark that was going through Carcosa, and by the time I got to, the penultimate scenario, the waves or the sky.
Black Stars Rise?
Yes. By the time I got there, Mark had 4 mental trauma.
Oof.
Out of 5. So that campaign ended there. But yeah, didn't go well.
Yeah, I can't remember my actual worst, but yeah, I think it was around 4 or 5 trauma total, and I want to say it was Leo and TFA, because I remember like limping into Depths of Yoth, and he was just wrecked, and he died during that scenario.
On the Seeker part, the dedicated clooving, Chris, I am on the same wavelength. To me, like, when I'm that dedicated clover, it's all about how can I be the most efficient at getting clues? How can I, for every action I take, how can I like average 1.5 clues per action, including my moving actions? You know what I mean? Like, so when I'm investigating, it's like I'm practice make perfect for a deduction while I'm also using my fingerprint kit, and it's like bouncing this back to hand, and like it's just so I totally get you. It's
like speedrunning.
Yeah, essentially, right? And especially when you have other people who are playing the role of, when you have 3 people at the table who are also getting clues here and there, but mainly just taking the heat off of you, it's way more exciting to do that because you don't have to worry about the heat. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, that's a fun role to play for sure. I also love watching that role. Like, when I play support, watching that clover then get 7 clues in their turn, I'm like, yeah, I helped,
It's essentially like watching the boss's health bar go down, right?
Yeah.
If the scenario is the boss in this really weird and not at all fitting metaphor.
Totally fits.
All right. Excellent. Well, thanks everyone for calling in. Always love to hear from you. Our next week's prompt, this one's just super easy. Super easy, non-committal. Just tell us, what's your favorite card right now? What card is just doing it for you at the moment? I want some new ideas for new decks, and I plan to mine them from answers. So please call in to the Mythos Busters hotline at 203-493-6984. That's 203-493-MYTH. Or click call on the Facebook channel, and it'll hook you straight up to our hotline. Thanks, Scott.
I just love that functionality. If you're on your phone, you go to our Facebook page and click call. It goes to our voicemail. So
yeah.
So simple, yet it tickles me, as you would put it.
Perfect. So we'll revisit that next time. All right, Ian. Let's do a patron roundup. What's going on with the patron? The people who generously give us money.
The patron crew. First off, thanks to our board members. That's Chris B, Chris H, and Chris M, our conglomeration of Chris's. Morton, Jared, Ian, Kyle, Philip, Dave, Abilio, Jesse, Chad, and Robert. Thanks so much for your huge support of the podcast. A special shout out to a random patron this time around goes to Adrian Harper. Thanks, Adrian, for your support as well. If you've never traveled to and visited our merch website, that's mythosmerch.com. Make sure you check it out because we're always adding new swag, and the stuff that's there is great. And I know an amazing amount of people have actually purchased swag, and I'm always a little bit tickled by the thought of people walking around with Mythos Buster stuff on. So go check it out if you haven't already. And we do have some job titles to give out, including a few promotions. So let's just alternate through these. We're going to start off with a promotion. Our dear friend Chad Reaverman, who previously held the job title of Neutral Investigator Combo Coordinator. We've worked through the paperwork and had some intense job reviews, but Chad is going to be promoted to head of Relian Replevin. Is that how you say that? Replevin? Replevin Actions and Intercult Arbitration. Whew, that's a mouthful.
Tell Justin helped us with that one.
Yes.
Now, he did explain what Replevin
Nailed it.
is. Yeah, Replevin is an action originating in common law and now largely codified, by which a plaintiff, having a right in personal property claimed to be wrongfully taken or detained by the defendant, seeks to recover possession of the property and sometimes to obtain damages for the wrongful detention.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, what a specific word.
So, when those Relians take your stuff by actions, you can try and get it back and get damages.
Mm-hmm. Very
also,
important.
we've got a vacant slot now for the Neutral Investigator Combo Coordinator. So if you know anyone, send us their resume.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, if your candidate is selected, we will give you $100 gift card to some non-existent store that doesn't exist. Yeah, BusterCon. There you go. All right, Sean, did you want to talk about our next promotion?
Sure thing. I wasn't here for it, but I did listen this far into the episode I missed. And Alan Brooks, you guys did a daring thing and went with the anti-joke for his title, and I thought it was hilarious. But obviously, we got to give him a real title at this point. And
I will jump in here and say, so we only have a certain amount of money each week for engraving the title plaques that go on desks, right?
I thought you were being serious for a second.
Those first two titles were so long, we only had 15 letters left, so we actually couldn't even spell accountant fully. But we saved up money this week so we can get Alan a proper title.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And Alan works with wildlife, and it looks like, specifically in ornithology, he sent us a bunch of really cool pictures of him with different birds. So it only seemed fitting that now we make Alan the head altered whippoorwill keeper, or Hawk, because we do love our acronyms on Mythos Busters.
Mm-hmm.
Gonna tend to the flock of de-eviled whippoorwills that are on the up in the orrery on the top of Mythos Busters HQ. Mm-hmm. Thanks, Alan.
They do need to be corralled though, because they keep on pooping over the parking lot and getting on the cars.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah, I've tried to eat my lunch up there, but they're just kind of a nuisance, so got to have a keeper.
And they keep specifically targeting the Employee of the Month spot. I don't know what that's about.
Well, maybe if you weren't Employee for the Month 3 years running, Sean. I don't know.
Well, I mean, what good is being CEO if you can't be Employee of the Month, right?
Martin Opsanger is our new Innsmouth Dam Control Operations Manager. There has been some serious issues with flooding in Innsmouth. I don't know if you guys are aware. So we've sent Martin out there to clear that up. Hopefully figures out how to work the dam controls, maybe stick a finger in a hole like the Dutch kid years ago.
No, it's just a giant shop vac.
Oh, Innsmouth, you're screwed. Well, Martin, glad you're on it.
Our next job title goes to Alyssa. Alyssa will be holding down the role of Chief Archivist of the Offsite Ghastly Storage Facility. So if you need to access the records from that sometimes troublesome offsite facility, Alyssa is the one you want to turn to.
That is a reference that keeps us in the clear from a copyright perspective to Ghostbusters. I like it. I like it. Oh, I ruined it, didn't I?
No, not at all. No, we keep it off site because it's quite ghastly.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And lastly, one Magnus Ostrom is going to be filling the ever coveted position of the Unvisited Isle Company Retreat Camp Counselor.
A camp counselor.
Start working on those spooky stories and those eldritch campfire songs.
Make sure you get enough sticks so everyone can make s'mores.
Mm-hmm.
Roast the marshmallows.
Did I ever tell you guys the story of how I became afraid of toes?
No.
Okay. Well, real quick.
Magnus, listen in because this is important.
Yes. Let's expand upon this in length, please.
Well, we're almost an hour in and we haven't hit the main topic yet, so we'll see. But anyway, I went to a summer camp when I was a wee tot. Maybe 8 years old, I want to say. And, firstborn child, was a real homebody. I was somewhat outdoorsy, but I had never just, lived like that before. So it was it was a rough experience. And then one of the last nights, one of the counselors whips out, and any of you children of the 80s will know Stories to Tell in the Dark. Or, shoot, what's that? What's the actual title of the horror book? No, it's one very specific collection of horror stories.
I think it's just Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, I think.
Yeah, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Yep. So one of my camp counselors whipped that out, and he was like, I have respect for this dude now because he's in this cabin full of kids, and he just got into it reading these scary stories. And there's one of them where apparently, and I have a foggy memory, so maybe anyone who knows these stories better than I do. But there's one story where there's a kid, I want to say, that's out in the woods, and he sees this thing at the bottom of a tree, and he's like, oh, that's a really cool mushroom. I'm going to cut that off. So he cuts it off and brings it home. And essentially it's like this monster's toe. Gross. And the monster comes looking for it. And just the way my camp counselor at the time told that story, and it was just like, where's my toe? And it just captivated and terrified 8-year-old me. Literally called my parents that night. Not my proudest moment, but yeah. So toes are a little bit of a tricky subject for me nowadays.
Now we need a swarming toes enemy.
But thanks everyone for hopping on. We appreciate y'all's support, and we hope you find your offices comfy.
MJ's just scribbling down violently the next 5 art briefs. More toes.
Of toes.
Oh boy, what have I done? This is what happens when you be vulnerable with people, man. You just get hurt. All right. I don't believe we have any news, but Scott, we've got some rules, right?
We do. So this is straight from MJ, but informally. So there is a slight, is it even an issue? I mean, I don't even know I'd call an issue. So it is for the pack Into the Maelstrom, which is the final pack of Innsmouth. This is not a spoiler at all. But basically, on the first act, the way it's written, so you have to collect keys. Spoiler alert, you're collecting keys in an Innsmouth scenario. Basically, the way the act is written, once you get a certain amount of keys, it says the way it's written, you must advance. So it's like one of those things like, when you achieve this, advance. The intent was actually to have it optional, so you could try to succeed more than the minimum. Does that make sense? I'm trying to be as spoiler free as I can.
Yes, and that also seems like super important.
Yeah, so basically, this is an error, they will publish an errata for this. But MJ has said feel free to play it as an optional advance for the first act when you're playing it. So
good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know. Wonderful. Oh, is that it?
That's it. Yep.
Oh, I mean that is really important though.
So I hope that is clear enough without being spoilery, because I didn't want to get to spoilers. And there's not really that much spoilers. Just you don't have to advance. You can collect more keys if you want to try for more, or you can advance.
I think you nailed it. I'm spoiled on nothing.
Excellent.
Beautiful. All right, guys, let's crack into our actual main topic. We're not quite an hour in. Go us.
Mm-hmm.
So we've done this topic before. Like I said, I believe it was episode 47. Underrated cards. I think it's fun to talk about. I also want to acknowledge up front that there's an inherent flaw with the topic to begin with, because underrated assumes that you know what the rating is, and what the rating is in your head is going to depend on a fair few things. Who you're exposed to, what micro metas they've played in, like what you've just seen other people do. Like there's a lot of factors here that are going to make people, when we read these cards off, go like, well, yeah, that's a good card. Duh. So, I just wanted to acknowledge that. So that just means you agree with us, really. Scott, why don't you lead us off?
Okay. You know what? I'm just going to start with the heavy hitter right at the beginning. Cryptic Grimoire, Text of the Elder Guardian. This is the thing you can translate in the Innsmouth campaign. And it's the one where whenever you resolve one or more curses during a test, you get to put a charge on it. And when you would draw a card from the encounter deck, discard 5 charges off this thing and draw a card from your deck instead. It takes so it takes a lot to get it translated. And then also, if you're going the curses
that's the one where
way,
you have to have 10 curses in the bag, right?
You sure do.
Ooh, okay. All right.
But there are tons of ways to get charges on things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the fact that you can... it's secrets. Pardon me. Secrets.
Yes.
The fact that you can preemptively cancel, a skip the Mythos phase type of thing, and this could happen repeatedly, I think this is absolutely amazing. It does take quite a bit to get it translated, but hot damn once you do. If you're going hard secrets in a Seeker deck, yeah, amazing.
I can see this in an Amanda deck where she grabs can she grab Enraptured? Is Enraptured practiced, or is that innate?
I don't know.
I should look. That'd be cool with Enraptured, though. Just pop a bunch of secrets on there while you investigate.
I will look for you. Is practiced. It
is practiced. Okay, lovely. Well, that's the thing you might do. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
That seems really, really good. I still have yet to try to get the bag or the grimoire translated.
That's the big part, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But I think it's worth it to try. If your team can together manage that amount of curses for one scenario to get this thing translated, yeah. I mean, and then you use curses kind of as an alternate resource in the game, in the future games and stuff, and then when you're resolving them,
All right, Scott. So, quick aside, I know we're only 3 scenarios in on Dream Eaters, but the next TNA campaign we run, we're doing Blurst Tech.
Done.
Yep.
Okay. I'm gonna get the Cryptic Grimoire. Okay.
How about your first one?
Alrighty. My first one. Again, this is one of those things where I'm not sure if this card is underrated or not, but it's one of those things where you're I want it shouted from the rooftops more. So
I know that vibe.
Yeah, needs more attention more so than underrated. But mine is one Lonnie Ritter, the rogue asset, the rogue ally. For a few reasons. One is completely non-game related, which was just ever since this whole idea of Lonnie showed up originally in the
Jenny novella.
And then the Jenny novella. I think all of us around that time were like in our mod chat saying, there needs to be a Lonnie card. So
she was such a cool character. She's very singular in the Arkham universe.
Yeah, for sure. But in terms of mechanical terms, I think some things that stick out to me is one, more than anything, there's still not like a huge amount of like big hard hitting level 0 rogue allies beyond the Mississippi Manatee. There's him, of course. There's my boy Joey, but even though I love Joey the Rat, I'll acknowledge he's not for a lot of decks. He's more specialized, and you have people like Gregory Gry, who serves a certain deck type. But the reason I appreciate Lonnie is just providing another ally option for level 0 rogue decks, giving you that +1 combat boost, which is was missing at level 0 as well for rogue, and that's huge for someone like Jenny, say, if you're trying to make her a killer, or Skids for sure. And then the other part is she's just a huge sanity soak with 3 sanity, which is also important for a lot of rogues who like Tony or like Skids, who can get into sanity trouble quickly, especially with the low willpower that rogues are known for. So, and I haven't even gotten to her whole thing with like fixing leather coats and items to heal damage in horror, because that's very cool and you can do a lot with it. But I just kind of, even without that, just like having the combat boost, the sanity soak at level 0 is useful. But then if you do dabble in like leather coat Lonnie combination where she's healing damage off the coat and horror off herself, then you can have a pretty effective kind of loop going there.
You mean leather Lonnie?
Yes.
Yeah, she's okay. Yeah, I'm seeing it. She's one that I keep forgetting about. She came out in Winnie, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. I think the problem is when I'm playing rogue, I almost never play killer, so I just don't think about her. But yeah, she's really good, real good. All right, you sold me.
Do you have time to talk about our Lord and Savior Tony?
Always.
Six action Snicker snacks.
Mm-hmm.
All right, my first one is a little bit newer. I think this came out in Return to TFA. Anyway, it's Blood Eclipse level 1. So we've had Blood Eclipse for a while. We had level 3, which allows you to take any number of damage to do the damage increase. But I really like Blood Eclipse level 1 because generally it's a smaller ask from an experience perspective, of course. But just a 3 pop for a 1 cost event is pretty good. So as long as you can hit that test and actually hit the test with your willpower, I have found it to be really effective. I've taken it in Mary, I've taken it in Diana, and I really like it in Nathaniel. So yeah, so I think what's interesting is that you do have to have some way to deal with the damage. Of course, if you have 9 health, that really helps. But I've also used it in Tommy, and I have twice pulled it off where I have a brother Xavier down.
Oh yes,
and pop the damage from Blood Eclipse on brother Xavier. He hasn't been promoted yet. Brother Xavier to pop 5 damage on an enemy, and that is satisfying. Yeah,
I've used it in Calvin.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I've enjoyed it as something to like just get them charged up. So,
yeah, I think it's a really neat little card. Doesn't go everywhere, but if you can afford the damage, heal the damage, soak the damage anyway, I feel like it's a really neat little include for 1 XP.
See it in Mark too. Draw a card.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is one I keep forgetting about. But yeah, I like the one cost 1 XP is super cheap. You're basically paying the damage instead. So I need to think about this one more.
Good. It's working. Scott, how about your next one?
This one's a rather new one, too. A lot of my, about half of them are kind of new. This is a card that I was playing in my Silas deck with Casey. And I was kind of waffling on it. But I think it's a strong card, and it kind of came to a realization when I realized that I just needed to RTFC and read the card better. It's Butterfly Effect. So basically, a somewhat Silas effect on an event. Now, the cool part about this is it is fast play when a Chaos token with a symbol is revealed during a skill test at your location. So I was reading that as Skull, Cultist, Tablet, and Elder Thing. I realized this can also be used in Curse decks and Bless decks and all that whatnot. So this can be fired pretty reasonably. This is also at your location, so you can help this out, help out your buddies. And this goes along with Cryptic Grimoire, where if you're going to be putting a bunch of curses in the bag, and someone pulls their second curse and they can't deal with that, and they either want to pull out or add more, 0 cost event, fast, just does it. And you can be you can add the skill even if you're not the performing investigator. So maybe you've committed one, and I think maybe you can commit another. Or you can back out, right? You can return a card oh, this is not happening, right? And yank it back. So, and it's 1 XP. Real cheap. And if you're playing...
linked Beloved here, which is a lasting effect, right? So that if you pull a Bless token with Beloved, you automatically succeed, and you can Butterfly Effect it back into your hand, right? Is that how that works?
You may remove to replace that tokens.
Oh, no.
I'd have to read into that more. But
that seems fine.
Yeah. Anyways,
cool.
I don't think that works. I think you have to pay the cost of putting Beloved out of play.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
Anyways, Butterfly Effect. I think it's absolutely fantastic. It costs 1 XP. It's dirt cheap. I think it's super versatile for a ton of things. So.
And also quite possibly the most emotionally affecting Ashton Kutcher movie.
Yes.
Yeah, there's not a ton of competition, but yeah, I'll agree.
For all you Ashton Kutcher fans. Yeah, Davvy's saying you can commit Beloved in reaction to revealing a Blessed token.
Oh, yeah, there it is. Okay. Yep, that's what I was missing.
So yeah, the key thing for me was realizing that a symbol includes Bless and Curse. So if you're playing a super heavy Bless Curse tech deck, this is absolutely amazing.
Wonderful. All right. Ian, your next one.
Okay, my next one is one that actually, there's a few on my list that surprised me. Like when I sat down to think about underrated cards, this isn't one I expected to come across because I would have thought this was not necessarily overrated, but one I wasn't a fan of. But when I looked at this card, there was a certain kind of part of it that caught my attention. So this is Swift Reflexes. This is a rogue event. Cost 2. Basically, you're paying 2 to get an action. So you can play it during any investigator's turn, except during an action. You immediately take an action as if it were your turn. So it's kind of like a Pocket Skids where you're paying 2 to get an action. And this is a card that I included in a lot of decks. At first, when it first came out, it came out in Wages of Sin, I think. But I just ended up cutting it a lot, especially when I upgraded, because it was just the case of actions are always good and extra actions are good, but I can get it in other ways, and it's kind of taking up space in my deck that I need for more important stuff. But when I was looking through again, there's a particular piece of it that caught my eye again that I didn't really focus on before, which was being able to play it during any investigator's turn. And that's where I see the potential here. Because I've had a lot of situations in two-handed, especially, where I'm like, everything is in the wrong order. Like, if only I could have this investigator evade, but then have the other investigator do the rest of their turn and move away, and then go back to the other investigator and have them do the rest of their turn. Like, there are times where it's useful that if you could just have like that one action to do during someone else's turn, whether it's like an evade to free them up, or an investigation or something. So I think so I'm seeing this as an underrated in multiplayer specifically, as kind of, or two-handed even more specifically, that I think that there could be some value here.
Love it. And I feel like that's one where, as Scott is so fond of saying, it has a really high skill ceiling where like if you can see the right moment to play it, that's hugely impactful. And yeah, I mean, I think it's maybe underrated because you initially read it and you're like, oh, okay, I pay 2 for an action, whoopee. And that's okay sometimes, but when you really think about, oh, I can like combo break the normal turn order, that's pretty good.
And in worst case, you got the 2 agility icons sitting there if the right moment doesn't present itself.
Right. Okay, so quick aside, because my favorite Preston deck that I've ever built was a Preston extra action red gloved man deck, where the whole point of it was to like kind of position yourself, play down red gloved man, and then like ace in the hole, or Leo is my other ally, and just try to get as much out of that red gloved man turn as possible.
Right.
And yeah, this was really good in that deck. It's really, really clutch. All right, my next card. I've got a oh boy, I lost my spot. Oh right, okay. So this is one where the level 0 card, it's pretty okay, but the level up one, I feel like I don't hear people talking about it very often, and it's very awesome. And I think maybe it's because the level 0 one is so mediocre that people look at the level up one and kind of don't maybe see its power. But Dumb Luck level 2 is a really good card. And I will also like backtrack for a quick second. Dumb Luck level 0 is a really good card in multiplayer when the killer's going first during Mythos. Because you can just pop the enemy back on top of the deck. But anyway, Dumb Luck level 2 is when you fail an evade attempt against a non-elite, I think it's non-elite enemy, by 2 or less. Or so no, Dumb Luck level 2 is 3 or less.
3 or less, yeah.
You put it on the bottom of the encounter deck.
You essentially kill it.
You basically kill it, except you do it in one action. And what's really cool is that failing by 3 or less is gonna happen for most of the enemies in the game. Because as long as you can fail it, which is not that hard, you're only going to run this in investigators that don't have crazy high evade. Like I put this in Patrice for Iron Man, and I think it did a decent amount of work. Again, I put this in Preston because he's failing evade tests. Like, okay, just put it on the bottom of the deck. Sorted. Just straight up sorted. I have put the stupid Deep One Bull on the bottom of the deck 3 times with this card, and it's so satisfying.
You've sold me.
It's so goddamn satisfying. I don't know if I've said it before, but fuck the Deep One Bull, by the way. So anyway, yeah. Dumb Luck level 2. Really, really good card. I think it's overlooked because it seems kind of fiddly and maybe like a little bit too close to like oops, but it is a one-shot, pretty consistent one-action solution for a troublesome enemy that you just don't want to see anymore.
Yeah, and like failing by 3 is such a large window.
Yeah.
Like yeah. This card's great.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem of this card is its name, that it's called Dumb Luck, because then whenever I'm scrolling through the list of cards, I see Dumb Luck and my mind immediately skips over it. But yeah, I need to pay attention to this one more because I do like that effect a lot.
Yeah, it's very, very good. Scott?
My next one, again, is from Innsmouth. I think this card, because of the unreliability of it, I think a lot of people are iffy on it. But I think once you do the math, if you're playing like an all curse deck, or if you're just playing in a 4-player game and it's blurs, I think it can be also a whack load of fun. So maybe it might be underrated as far as how fun it could be. But Lucky Penny. Okay. So it is exceptional, 4 XP. And it does require that you have some sort of coin on you that you can flip, which might be the hardest part of this card because everything's digital now, let's be honest. So I plan to get a specific coin for this card. Anyways, if you're playing like an all curse rogue, whenever you would reveal a curse token, 50% chance that turns into a blessed token. The other 50% is it does what it would anyways. Yeah. Which, like, 50%, you're canceling 50% of your curse tokens. So, Faustian Bargain, add 2 curse tokens in the bag. Might as well be add a bless and a curse to the bag. And now that card just seems a lot better because it is. If you're playing in a blurse environment and you have people doing blesses and you turn a bless into a curse, you get a card. And you know what? If this is only happening once in a while, where you're turning a bless into a curse, if you're smashing tests, this might not even affect you. Right? Like that going from +2 to -2 and then drawing a 0, like you might just draw a card and who cares? So
okay.
I think
feel like the only reason I haven't played with this card yet, because it looks really cool. The only reason I haven't played with this card yet is I'm one of those cowards, I guess, who's kind of more or less waiting for the whole Blur suite to be out before I really dig in. But yeah, 4 XP. It's a cool card. Dude really needs to clip his nails though.
Yeah, if you're playing curse, like full on curse, I think this card is almost a necessity. So maybe not a necessity. It is a very strong card.
Yeah,
but I think the randomness of the flipping to some people that might seem, I don't know, childish is the wrong word, but like it's another random element to a game where you're randomly drawing tokens out of a random bag and now you're flipping like, you know what I mean? Like I could see how people who are really into the math of the game, this might just be like, oh, it's another thing. But honestly, the math is simple.
How about those of us who just love chaos?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Right? Whereas there are those of us who love the chaos. Yeah, actually I haven't gotten to play with this one yet, and it's mostly because I still haven't like took a deep dive into the curse stuff yet. I dipped my toes in a little bit, but I need to play with it more. But yeah, I love the idea of I kind of want to find a way to play this during Iron Man, just so I can be like flipping coins all day long. But we'll see. We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah, are we really brave enough to do blurs for Iron Man? That is going to be such a brain burn.
I don't know if we are or not. I don't think so, but we'll see.
We will.
We'll have to only have one chaos bag. Because normally we have 2, right? Like we have one on either side of the table.
Yeah. Well, I guess if we're doing like Dream Eaters, it could just be one campaign that's blurs. One of the two.
Yeah. All right, he's lowballing us now. He's trying to slip it in. Thinks we wouldn't notice. All right, Ian, what's your next one?
Okay, my next one, I promise they won't be all rogue cards. The first 2 were, but this is not. This is one that's been out for a while, so we'll go in the way back machine, because this is all the way from the Dunwich cycle. And this is a card that I think has a lot of the cards that I picked fall into this category. The last one did as well, where I think the full potential comes in with like interacting with other people's stuff and other people's decks, and I still see that as a place in the game, at least from what I see, that doesn't get tapped as much because everyone kind of focuses on their own deck. But this is a chance encounter. This is a Survivor event, 1 cost. Choose an ally asset and any player's discard pile. Put that asset into play under your control. And at the end of the round, if that asset is still in play, discard it. So this is one that I think sometimes doesn't get used as much for a few reasons. One is because we often, and I include myself in this, build decks around allies that are going to stay around for a while, and our ally slots are kind of spoken for. So it's hard to think of...
get attached.
Yeah, and it's hard to think of cases where you're going to have that slot free to, like, sneak someone in there and back out. But I think there's a lot of potential for this either in, like, multiplayer, where you're able to grab, like, ally assets from another player's discard pile, even for a round. Or we have so many kind of allies in the game now that are very useful to just like bounce in to have an enters play effect and then get them out, or like a discard effect. So I could see building a deck that's more based around that, where you have like the Mysterious Raven that you can discard to find a clue, or a Stray Cat, of course. Just a variety of different assets, allies that you could cheat into play, use their ability, and then go from there. So I think there's some use here, and then of course in multiplayer you're just opening up lots of different options with other people's assets.
And Summon Hound. Let's not forget Summon Hound.
The only way to play Summon Hound.
Yes. For the discerning Summoned Hound user. Except only a chance encounter.
My second favorite Agnes deck I've ever played was one that like went hardcore in on that and used both of her arcane slots with charisma to get down 2 Summoned Hounds, and oh boy, that was a fun campaign.
she just has the leash holding the 2 Summoned Hounds.
Yes. Just like straight up like Scott, what was the Dark Eldar? Was it Kith the Beastmaster in Conquest?
Yeah, Kith was with all the little doggies.
Yeah, with all the hound, with the hounds.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, my next one is actually pretty pedestrian, even by my standards. But I do think it's underrated because it is small, it is cheap, it released early, and I feel like a lot of people don't really pay it a whole lot of mind, and that is Ritual Candles. I feel like its stock may have raised a little bit since it was included in Jackie, because she's particularly good with it. But if you think about it, it's like, okay, so particularly in like the second half of campaigns, you pull out that scenario reference card and it's like, oh, gross, look at these modifiers. For a 1 cost, 1 hand slot card, in a class that doesn't really care about hands, you can just take all of those modifiers down by 1. And that honestly makes a pretty giant difference. Mm-hmm. It makes an even bigger difference if you're comboing it with more token play, if you've got your grotesque statues, or if you're Jim, or if you're Jackie. But I do think that even without playing other things, if you've got a free hand slot, Ritual Candles is a pretty okay way to go. Like it takes the edge off the bad stuff tokens. And it can make the difference a lot of the time.
Well, and I think too, when you do the math on it, like, so if you're playing a standard campaign, your top negative is -4. There's a lot of times those skulls will max out at 5, or the elder thing gets to -5, or like there's a cultist that says -1, draw another token or something like that. Mm-hmm. This can really soften the math on that, where now it's like, okay, the highest they'll be essentially is a -4. So now you can plan for +4 to knock out the bag, save 1. Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think it's a great card, and when used in the right deck, it's great.
Mm-hmm. It's just a little. It's quiet. It's a quiet card.
Mm-hmm. It really is quiet. It's one of those math cards, right? It's like
Yep.
I see Jesse in the chat talking about Jim, but like, I mean, Jim is the physical incarnation of Ritual Candles, right? Like, you just
Jim is indeed the math investigator.
This makes the bag slightly better. Akachi makes your card slightly better. Ritual Candles makes the bag slightly better. Like, it's just mystic math.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
# mystic math.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like Ritual
That was the name of
Candles.
my post-rock band in high school.
It's the nice cheap card, and the fact that it just keeps giving you that effect. It doesn't exhaust to do it. It's just going to keep doing it every time a symbol is revealed. I don't use it enough, but every time I end up using it, I end up being impressed with it. So I'm all about the candles.
Love it. All right, Scott. Why don't you put a clue down for us for your next one?
Okay, this is I'm sure I mentioned this many times, I think, over the last 2 years, but I think, and I didn't realize that this card came out in Dunwich, which
Early.
Yeah, really early, and I did not see this until a few years ago. Really, like, I didn't really see it for what it was, you know?
I didn't truly see it.
I didn't really look into his eyes. Dr. Maelson is possibly one of the best allies in the game, I think, especially for solo players. If you're able to take him, first of all, no network. I didn't just notice this. I noticed this a few years ago. That was good. But it like the first time I read him when he came out in Dunwich, I was like, eh. It took me till like the end of Carcosa maybe to figure out that I was like, oh yeah, Maelson seems really good. 1 cost. He has a 2/2 soak, and he's in Seeker. So if you do have to use his ability, you're probably getting that clue back real quick. And the fact that you can just be like, nope, and just for no, like the cost is just the clue, and chuck that card back and get another one. I think he's fantastic.
You know what I think his main problem is? It's that he came out before Milan was tabooed. So like, you just had to really, really justify it to not play Milan instead.
Yeah. I think that's huge, right? It probably clouded my judgment for sure.
Right, definitely did mine.
Yep.
That's the beauty of the taboo list. I just wanna props to the taboo list.
Oh, love the taboo.
Keeping the game interesting since 2019? Is that when the first one came out?
Maybe 18 actually.
Might be.
Always be tabbing.
Always be tabbing.
Yeah, whenever we talked about it.
I think for sure Maelson though like excels in solo because it just is one clue and it's one card and that's the whole Mythos phase. So I just know in solo I've used him tons of times and I absolutely love him. So
yeah, it makes a huge difference. To this day, I still can't believe he's 1 cost. Like, how is he 1 cost?
Well,
it's
I
just
think it's
insane
probably,
value.
Compare him to Dr. Milan, right? Like, how do you make a card like this good enough that it competes with Milan? Well, you give him extra soak. You make him
then
super
taboo
cheap.
Milan.
And then you taboo Milan, and now it's like, yeah, it's fantastic. So,
yeah, and Melson's really good when it's like a very clear choice, like, oh, hey, big enemy, I'll put down a clue to not deal with that. I hate the marginal choices though, because I feel like I always make the wrong one. I always regret and see a worse card.
I always think like if I'm thinking like, should I shouldn't. That is my thing, right? Like it's when I draw that card off the top of the deck, if I know it's a Maelson card, I just do it immediately. If I hesitate, I'm like, then I'm like, I can probably deal with this. And I need to just take my licks.
Yeah. I always ask myself, can I live with this? Like, is it gonna, it's gonna hurt, but can I live with it?
That seems fair. Ian, what's your next one?
All right, we're heading back to green. This is a card from
Color Me Surprise.
from TCU. And this is another in the category of playing with other people's things. This is You Owe Me. This is You Owe Me one. A 0 cost event where you can look at another investigator's hand and play a card in their hand under your control. And if you do, you and that investigator each draw 1 card. again, I think the biggest downfall of this card is it requires at least some level of coordination with other players. It requires, other players in the first place, of course. But these kind of cards, I feel like often fall by the wayside just because it asks players to worry about other people's decks, which is often not something that we do in Arkham. But there's so much potential with this card because it's one of the few cards in the game that gives you access to playing a card that you can't play. It's not level locked. It's play a card in that investigator's hand. It could be a high XP card. It could be any kind of card that you normally can include in your deck. So there's just a wide open realm for jankery or even just fun of finding a card that your Jim or your Jenny or Preston, whoever, normally wouldn't be able to play those cards, and suddenly you're able to put them into play. So I think there's a lot of potential there, and just the fact that as a little extra bonus there that you and the investigator each draw a card. So you can kind of think about it like you may often during a game spend an action to just draw a card, right? Well, you can spend that action. You'll still get to draw a card, but you're also going to get to play something fun from someone else's hand. And they don't even have to be at the same location as you. So this is a card I want to find a way to make use of at some point.
Now, if you'll excuse the typing, I'm just updating my grief decks. just
fair.
A second here. Yeah.
Hey, why you want to touch on my cards, man?
Yep.
What's that about?
This is another one I need to include in my Iron Man deck. Just gonna be grabbing your guys' cards all day long.
Well, I feel like there's times too that a rogue might have some extra money, or like you mentioned, Preston always have money. And it's getting near the end of the game, and there's another player who has cards in their hand but no resources, but they're fine, right? Like they're set up, they've got the icons they need, and you're like, "Hey, can I borrow something from your hand?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure." Like, why not, right? Yeah, I think this is just squeezes a little extra juice out of some decks.
I do really like the idea of Preston just like sugar daddying everyone's expensive cards. Like, oh, you wanted to play that Dynamite Blast? Here, I got you, boo.
Mm-hmm.
Let me pull out my fat wallet.
Yeah.
All right.
Sean.
Well, moving on to my card, and this is one that maybe it's not as underrated as should be included on this list, but I don't feel like I've heard many people talk about it, which is pretty much the only bar I've been using. And that's Lucky level 3.
I love this.
So we all love Lucky 1 and 2. They're fantastic cards. But for that one extra experience and gating it behind anyone or gating it from anyone who's just, off-class rogue.
Uh-huh.
Rogue, not rogue.
Survivor.
Yeah. Anyone who's off-class Survivor, you get free cost, which turns out in Survivor means something.
Mm-hmm.
You can play this in a Dark Horse deck without having to plan it ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
You can play it for anyone, which I think is the biggest piece. Like, legitimately, you sit at the location. While you have this in your hand, everyone is effectively +3 to their stats until you play that card.
Mm-hmm.
And the person you play it for gets to draw a card. Like, just that one extra XP pushes that card into ridiculously good territory. And it was fantastic to begin with. So Lucky level 3. Highly, highly recommend. If you haven't tried it yet, pay the extra XP. It's fantastic.
Yeah, Lucky level 3. As soon as I saw it, I was like, this is a great card because Lucky level 2 is great and 3 is just better. I've been using this and you talk about like being at the same location as somebody. So in Casey and I's campaign going through Innsmouth with Silas and Amanda, I have Granny Orn leveled up, I have Lucky level 3, and I have Butterfly Effect. So when we're at the same location, like he can just take whatever tests he wants at whatever like danger level because of Lucky level 3, Granny Orn, and Butterfly Effect. Like those 3 cards together, are just insanely good. And
Like you're just passing tests.
yeah, and anytime you go to fail, it's like, no, you don't. So,
But now though.
yeah, but have one now. Yeah.
It feels so good going down from 1 resource to 0 resources.
Yes.
The amount of times I've been happy and been like, ha, I have a lucky, joke's on you, and then realize that 0 resources is a non-zero number. That's definitely happened to me on more than one occasion when I played myself. I've played. Who did I take this in recently? Silas, I think, is who I had this in recently, and just being able to extend that across the table or yourself is helpful.
You know what meme this card makes me think of? Is the, call an ambulance! Call an ambulance! But not for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see it. All right, Scott, hit us up with your next one.
All right. So mine is actually like a pack of 3 cards, because they're all like, they do the same thing, but for the 3 different skills. I know.
Cheater.
Sharp Vision, Brute Force, Expeditious Retreat. And I'm specifically including Expeditious Retreat in here for anyone that plays not solo. I mean, even in solo, it's pretty decent. But the ability to just evade for other people. Sharp Vision, I mean, anyone who is cloovering and can take this, like, this is just an absolutely amazing, like we were talking about with Chris's call-in. Like, the volume of clues that this is bringing in is insanely good. And Brute Force, like, the ability to just I mean...
Throw a haymaker?
Well, 3 health enemies, right? Like, we're constantly talking about the odd healths, right? Because so many weapons do even amounts of damage. Brute Force is just an awesome way to knock out, like... Oh, God, what were those cultist guys from TFA?
The Brotherhood.
Brotherhood, yes. Yeah. Right? Like, there you go. There's your Brotherhood cultist solution. So.
Which is the shitlord of the three health enemy kingdom. It's just the worst. Kill it with fire immediately.
They're all at 1 XP. They're all free to play because they're skill cards. Like, I think that these are just absolutely bomb cards that go in every deck that can take them for their appropriate slot. Like, it just, I don't know. I think they're fantastic. And I know Expeditious Retreat is kind of like the least loved ones of those 3, but I think in multiplayer it's a lot stronger than people give it credit for.
Yeah, I think for a long time what people often said about survivors, they're very good at doing things, but the thing they're lacking is that kind of efficiency, and that's what these cards brought to Survivor. Of just like that damage compression or clue compression.
They're good cards. I feel okay. All right, gun to your head. Yep. Which one's the best one? No.
Sharp Vision. It's between Sharp Vision and Brute Force. I think it's Sharp Vision. But
yeah, I think I agree.
I mean, clues win games, right? So
they do.
I don't know. I just
also
think
really like that in Min.
Yeah, right. Like that's the thing. It's +4, so you're investigating at 8, and if you succeed by 2, you're discovering extra clues. Like, it just,
chef's kiss. Ian.
All right, so I'm turning away from green this time. Now this is one that is not necessarily overrated for other people, because I'm not sure how much other people are using it. It's more for myself that I haven't really used it much, and I'm like, wait, looking at it, why? Why am I not using it more? But my other caveat here is my inclusion of this card is in no way an endorsement of a certain side of a certain argument. This is just a card that I think is underrated that I want to use more. This is level 3 Guardian Enchanted Blade.
Oh, damn it! Oh, you fucking had me! Hook, line, and sinker.
Well, there's the truth.
Now, I do like the Mystic one a lot, but for some reason I feel like this one might be more underrated. I don't know why. But anyway, here's what I like
You don't
about
talk to Scott enough, that's why.
Yeah, that's probably what it is. Here's what I like about it. I like that you only spend the charge if you succeed, so you can keep that in your back pocket. But
That's huge.
Even more so, I like that it's giving you two things that are kind of potential weaknesses of Guardian. One, card draw, so getting a card. And two, horror healing. Like, if there's a thing that's going to stop you with Guardian, it's probably that you're not drawing enough cards or you're dying from horror. And so this is giving you, essentially 3 cards and 3 horror taking away for doing what you already want to do, which is killing stuff. So I think the reason I haven't used this more is because I always get distracted by the big flashy guns instead. Like, this is 3 XP, so it's not nothing. And it's not necessarily giving you that, 3 or more damage that some of the big guns might give you. But I think it's worth a look when you're trying to think about, covering for Guardian weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's a decent amount of horror you don't have to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
Drawing cards is good, generally.
Sean says through clenched teeth.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it too is the Mystic one is really good, and so what? I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it sucks in Akachi. But the Mystic one is really good. It overshadowed the Guardian one. Because I think the Mystic, Guardians have so many weapons that can just do a buttload of things.
Yep.
This is a different way to do damage than what Mystic was used to, or it felt like it. I mean, it's still taking up a spell slot, though. So it's almost like a weird shriveling, you know what I mean? But
It is a shriveling. It's a shriveling that bleeds into your hand.
Yep.
And for that cost, you can... Oh, sorry, we're not talking about Mystic Enchanted Blade.
Yeah. So, anyways, I think... That overshadowed the Guardian side of it, and I agree with you, Ian. I think it's underrated. I think it's a really good card.
Yeah, I think it's solid.
Especially because it's with Guardians, they don't use their arcane slots very often, so it's almost like a not a cost.
Yeah.
It looks like a cost at first blush, but then you remember who you're putting it in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and it's competing for nothing. Yeah, which is great.
Unlike in Mystics, right? Where that's why Mystics it's bad in Akachi. Yeah,
it's good. It's fine. Akachi, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Well, I was actually going to trap card because I have level 3 18 Derringer written on my list, but I was going to swap it for Enchanted Blade. But Scott just said he likes Enchanted Blade, so my work is done here. I actually don't honestly, now that I'm looking at this entry, I don't know if level 3 Derringer is actually underrated. But it is very, very good. It is very, very good. Maybe it's just that it's one of those situations where I don't hear people, shouting from the rooftops for it. But, the level 0 18 Derringer in Survivor is pretty okay. But when you bump it up to the experience, you get an extra shot, you get reduced cost, you get a bump to the combat bonus. I feel as far as Survivor weapons go, it is just super solid because you're guaranteed to hit with all those shots. It only has 3 ammo, but you're hitting with them, or you're putting them back. Really, really good weapon.
It's an awesome weapon. It is level 2, by the way. So you can
it's
get
level 2. Mm-hmm. There we go.
Yeah. So
I'll correct that in the show notes and my brain.
It's also to make anyone who can take this as an off-class weapon, really, really good. I've wanted to try this in, goodness, what's his name? Calvin, because I haven't given it a shot in Calvin. But just I think the biggest problem with survivors is they have trouble with the damage output with their weapons, and this one kind of doesn't have that, right? You just get +1 damage. There's no fancy like be super poor or take up both hand slots, but if you pull a skull it breaks. Like there's nothing weird. It's only bonuses, right? Like if you miss, you get another shot at it, an even better one. So
yeah, I have never ever regretted going Derringer in a Survivor deck that wants to shoot things. It's pretty great.
Yeah, it's so good for sure.
All right. Well, that brings us to 5 apiece. Oh, Scott, you have a couple more, right? You want to run through what you've got left?
Yeah, sure. Super quick. True Understanding. I think I harped on that one a lot. I think we all have, actually. Especially in Innsmouth, there's so many tests on encounter cards and locations and all this stuff. Like, True Understanding is just absolutely amazing, especially in solo. It's got a wild icon. Whatever you're doing, you can get a clue at the same time.
I really missed about putting that in my Amanda deck, didn't I?
You sure did. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Yeah, it's probably good in Amanda. I would never tuck it under her, but I think it's, maybe. I don't know. Depends how your kit's set up.
Yeah, I suppose tucking it under her would require that you're hammering a non-investigation test a few times that turn. I don't know. I take it back. I take it back.
And then I also had Fine Clothes on there. I think Fine Clothes, I put it in pretty much every deck. It's 1 cost for a 1/1 soak, and it seems like MJ likes to throw a lot of parlaying in almost every campaign now. So rarely is it underused. But
yeah.
I'm not saying it's a great card though. I think this is a key. I think it's underrated. It's just, but I don't think it's like shout from the rooftops. It's great. I just think it's better than what I think a lot of people think it is.
Do you remember when it came out at the end of Dunwich and we're like, what a garbage card?
Yep.
And then immediately Carcosa happened and we're like, oh, auto include.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah. You just walk into the party and you're like, so that card that came out.
We need more clothes in the game. I want to select from a selection of clothes.
Need some more hats, shoes.
Yeah. Did you guys know that in the Arkham Mythos, before Diana Stanley joined the Silver Twilight Lodge, she owned, she was an entrepreneur. She owned a garment store.
Oh, a fibermancer.
Huntress Fabrics or something like that? I don't know.
She was a fabric smith.
She was. She was. Yeah. Anyway, little Diana trivia for you there. All right. So we're actually doing pretty okay on time. We talked about doing overrated cards as well. Maybe we don't dive into full. Oh, sorry, Ian. Do you have any other underrated cards?
I have like a billion. I talked to before the show with Scott about how I way overthought this, and I had like 3 per class. So I think I have like 16 or something crazy. I think
we'll run through whatever you want.
The only last one I'll mention is because it's been on my mind because of playing with Trish recently is a card that I never use and always kind of look down on is Quick Study. Which has some of the art in the game that still makes me laugh because it still looks like a little kid in a suit to me. But Quick Study is the 2-cost seeker asset, 2 XP, where you, as a free trigger, place one of your clues on your location to get +3 skill value for a skill test. So I could see this as another way potentially with Trish to get that clue. Like, let's say during the Mythos phase, she also needs help with will tests. So let's say you drop one of your little clues on your location to get +3 to a will test. And then,
that was really condescending, by the way.
Drop
one of your little clues.
One of your little clues. Your insignificant clues. But with Trish and a lot of seekers, to get that clue back is kind of trivial, not a big thing. And for Trish, that's kind of a value to if there's an enemy there, that gives you a way to interact with it by having a clue there if there wasn't a clue before, that kind of thing. So it's one I'll be trying out, I think.
Fun. All right. Well, do we maybe each want to pick one overrated card to rant about? Scott, you've got one in all caps that I'd love to hear you defend.
It even ends in fight me. SEFINA.
What?
Whoa!
I think she's fun.
What is
I think
happening?
she has some cool mechanics. Yeah, all the people in chat just what? Yeah, I think she's good. I think she's fun. I think she has a neat mechanic. But I think she desperately fails when you can't keep her economy up, and she desperately needs economy. And I think the rig she needs to put together is sometimes difficult to put together. I'm not saying she's bad. I'm just thinking that she's overrated. I think she's lower on a list than I think a lot of people put her for me. Yeah, just going out there, and again, not talking about fun, because I think she's a blast. Like, starting with a hand of 8 cards. Are you kidding me? I'm me. Like, why would I not love that? Right? And essentially,
I'm the Scott one.
Yeah, essentially a 13 card hand, right? Like, this is my dream, but I just don't think that she's reliable enough to be as good as a lot of people say she is. So
interesting. Okay, so
amazing though as grief.
You're more plugged in than I am. I feel like there was a lot of hype about SEFINA, like, through Carcosa, maybe even into Forgotten Age, because she does pretty well for agility, which was valuable there. But after that, I didn't really hear a whole lot about her. People still stand in SEFINA really hard.
Yeah, I find it a lot, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, there's that.
I just disagree. I love so you came with violence in mind.
I'm not sure how exactly to respond to this, but
yeah.
How about respond to it with an equally insulting overrated card, Ian?
Well, now all of my choices seem so tame in comparison.
Ursula. No, I was kidding.
Yeah, Ursula sucks. I struggled with this one, as I often do with overrated, because I was just trying to think of what actually counts as overrated to me, because I think most of the cards that are highly regarded are legit good cards. So the one that I actually settled on that I think is a decent choice is because it's just based on my own personal experience, which is in Mystic, a relatively newer card, Azure Flame. And the reason why is because it's a solid card. It's a good card. So it's not about that. For me, the overrated part just comes in where everyone had the knee-jerk reaction, me included, of saying this is just better than Shriveling. It's just straight better. And I had that reaction too, because I was like, okay, this is the bad effect on this is triggering off of Elder Sign +1 and 0 compared to Shriveling, which triggers off of bad stuff tokens. Like, which is going to happen more often? The bad stuff tokens for sure. But what I didn't take I didn't take into account the bad thing it does from that trigger, which is Azure Flame does damage and Shriveling does horror. And I have, on more than one occasion, run into trouble where Azure Flame has actually gotten me in damage danger, because I kept just having quote unquote bad luck of drawing Elder Signs and +1s and 0s. And next thing you know, I've got racked up like 3 or 4 damage just from this one damn card. So, it's,
there's something to be said for cards that pervert what's supposed to be a good thing, right?
Yeah. Which I guess is a good thing about the card in terms of balance, that it has that aspect to it. And so there are times when I've been like, I wish I had Shriveling and it was just doing horror to me instead. So overrated, not in the sense that it's a bad card and you shouldn't use it, but overrated just in the sense that you have to be careful. Gotta be a little bit careful when you might get burned by the flame.
Yeah. For my part, I will say what I've said from the beginning.
Uh-oh.
Machete is so overrated, guys. It's take it off the taboo list. It's
what card is that
point.
again? Because I always forget it
right?
exists.
That got tabooed into non-existence.
Look, and that's why, because look, it was definitely overused in the early game just because we were bereft of options. But as soon as the options expanded a bit, like it's fine. It's not a bad card by any stretch, but you get into those situations where you're already dealing with an enemy, then you draw another enemy. Suddenly your big consistent weapon is going to fail you pretty hard. And I really think that, if you play a lot of true solo, it's definitely better. But if you're playing a lot of multiplayer, and especially if you're playing to kill, yeah, I mean, I just take it off the taboo list at this point. I don't think it's hurting anything. I think if it were 0 XP, it still would not get played a ton. Some,
yeah,
but not a ton.
Even solo, I don't think it's good. But as soon as you draw a second enemy, it's not good. And look at how much swarming there is, right? Swarming destroy. I think Machete would be a great card to take off the taboo list and see what happens, because my gut
it'll
feeling,
be a fat load of nothing. I promise.
Yeah, my gut feeling is no one will notice, and the use of Machete will not change.
Yeah,
like maybe we'll see in a couple more solo decks, but I think it's going to be like Machete and a bunch of other weapons. Like, it's not like before where it was like Machete 45 good to go. Yeah.
And I do understand that also MJ kind of seems to have an interest in gating in some ways damage bonus weapons that have no uses, which is understandable. Yeah. But I also feel like Machete generally has a big enough restriction that it keeps it in line pretty well. I don't really think it needs the taboo anymore. It's just me. I also didn't think it needed it to begin with, but it is what it is.
I think it was a good idea to taboo it, to knock it out of people's hands for just a hot minute, and then all these weapons came in. Now we're bereft of options, as you say, and now we can put it back down to 0, like just non-taboo, and we're fine.
Yeah. That is really the value, is just be like, okay, stop it, guys, players, stop it.
Well, it's the Christopher Milan and Malison, right? Like, you had to knock Christopher Milan out of people's hands to look at me like, oh, hey, look, Malison's really, really, really good, and he's super undercosted because Milan existed. So,
yep, it's the Milan discount.
Yep.
Perfect.
So, I have a suggestion, Sean.
Go on.
I know you like doing the call-ins with the voicemail. So, in addition to what people think is their favorite card, what tickles them, I want to rattle off my overrated list and get people to call in angry at me.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, do it.
Okay.
Agitate.
So there's SEFINA. We'll start off at that. Okay?
Fuck SEFINA. You heard it.
I have 5 more cards. Do I have one? I don't have one for each class, unfortunately.
Okay.
But I'm missing Rogue? Well, I guess SEFINA.
You've done enough.
I'm missing
the most notable card in the list.
Yeah. I'm missing Survivor. How Survivor of me. All right, here it is, guys. Get angry at me.
Okay.
Steadfast.
Ooh.
Premonition.
Oh.
Dynamite Blast. Rite of Seeking.
What?
And Shortcut.
Fuck off entirely.
You've gone too far this time.
I'm not saying they're not good. I'm just saying they're overrated.
Okay.
So again, super quick. Steadfast, Premonition, Dynamite Blast, Rite of Seeking, Shortcut, and SEFINA. So call in angry. 293-493-MYTH. Or go to Facebook. And click
Dirty
call.
secret. Dirty secret from your Mystic player. Premonition has fallen off of most of my lists too. Not because I think it's overrated necessarily, but just because it's auto includes start to bore me after a certain point.
Sure.
And it literally slides into any deck that you can find the space for. So at a certain point I just started to not.
I think for me, like, we have these fun stories like the Carcosa Iron Man, where we, God, what's it called? The When SEFINA, Ian, you did the SEFINA, the AoE spell.
Yeah,
the Double or Nothing Storm of Spirits.
That one, right? Super cool story. The thing is, Premonition, if you're just going to blast the test to smithereens and only the tentacle would stop you, Premonition doesn't stop the tentacle, right? Like, you're just as likely to draw it on the next test, even if you draw the tentacle on the Premonition, and then you're like, oh god, I'll just waste that one. Glad I got, around it. I mean, like, it's that gambler's fallacy, right? Like, just because the roulette wheel has hit red 5 times in a row doesn't mean that the next time it has more chance of it going black. It is equal chance of drawing that tentacle as any other test. And so Premonition just maybe sometimes allows you to commit a little less, commit a little bit more. But I just don't think that is worth a card slot in the deck.
Where I really like it is like in, let's say, two-handed is where I'm off on using it, where you play it at the beginning and it's kind of guiding your action selection. Like, should I do the super risky, like, fight against retaliate where I don't have enough icons to be up, or should I do this other action first? Like, that's kind of where I like it, I think. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
anyways,
I always see Premonition as like it's like Mystic Lucky. It's a resource saver where like you can hold back on committing or know exactly how much to commit and not overcommit.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I mean I'm in the same camp where it's showing up in my decks far less nowadays. So yeah,
still a good card for certain decks, just overrated.
That's
Yep. Anyways, call in about the other 4 because I'm sure I riled some people up.
Stand's coming for you.
Bring it.
Mythos Busters spitting that agitative propaganda straight in your face.
Yeah. We're gonna have diss tracks coming soon.
Activate forces, activate and fight me. Yes. All right, wonderful. Well, I mean, call in for what's tickling you. Call in for why Scott's wrong. Call in with what your underrated cards are. Call in for literally any reason at all. We'd love to hear from you. Mythos Busters Hotline. Guys, let's round it out with some tentacle time. What has been grabbing y'all lately? Scott?
So still doing the chess thing. Loving it even more now. I don't know. It just... I don't have a lot of time lately because we're finishing our basement and obviously work and kids and everything like that. But being able to play chess on my phone and do some puzzles every day and everything like that, like I don't know, I really enjoy it. So if you want to play chess with me, message me on Discord because I forget my usernames on the chess apps because I didn't use Sage. I used like my actual name or something. Anyways, ping me on Discord anytime. We can get connected and play chess. Ian, following up on a recommendation from you, I don't know if this was on a tentacle time or not, but Tharsis, the go to space, go to Mars dice game.
I think that was Nick's recommendation, actually.
Oh, it was Nick.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and I think he actually said, like, Scott, I think this would be right up your alley. It is. So it's basically a survival cooperative game where... And it's like a resource management kind of, but the resources are dice. And then sometimes you also have to make tough decisions, like one of your astronauts die and you're running low on food. Should you eat them? And there's like penalties to cannibalism, but those penalties aren't as bad as not eating, usually, I find. So I tend to...
That's how cannibalism works.
Yeah. So, it's one of those games that makes you make really tough decisions. And sometimes there's no good decision. You're just like, which is the least worst decision? It's a digital game. I think it's also a board game. But it's out on Switch is where I'm playing it. And it's also on Steam, I know for sure. So
cool.
Super fun game.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Ian, how about you?
Okay, so I've been playing a few kind of games in the realm of digital card games, and one recently has really grabbed my attention, which is Trials of Fire. And so this is a deck building game, a deck building roguelike. We always get these confused out here, but basically the kind of game where you're progressing through and making runs and seeing how far you can go in a kind of world that gets randomly generated over time. And it's kind of a hot genre these days. There's a lot of games in this kind of same vein, but a lot of the ones that really hook a lot of people haven't quite hooked me. But for some reason, this is the one that has really hooked me. And so kind of the things that adds to this genre of deck building and the roguelite is, one, it's party based. So you have 3 different characters, each with their own deck. It has positional, like tactical battles. So you're actually moving your characters on the map. And then, the cards you play will vary based on like ranged attacks, and there can be obstacles that block you in line of sight, that kind of thing. So I really like that. Like the Summoner Wars, card game is one that I really enjoyed in the past because it had that blend of like card battles with like positioning on a map. And then it has the whole like adventuring aspect. So you're moving across a map, you gotta rest, you're finding more loot, upgrading items. So it just has it's a good stew going. It has a lot of mix of different elements that has really hooked me so far. So Trials of Fire is one that I definitely recommend. Even though there are a lot of kind of deck building digital games these days, I think this one is worth a look. And I just heard about it randomly from an article I saw and gave it a try, and I like it a lot.
Fantastic.
Ian, I know you mentioned, goodness, that game, Summoner Wars. You know it's getting relaunched, hey?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that.
Also, I learned the difference between roguelike and roguelite.
Okay, hit me.
A couple weeks ago. So, roguelike is when you start a game and you get as far as you can or whatever, and if you die, it's over. And then the next game, you just start right back at square one. Roguelite is when each run, like you can upgrade certain things, and like so it might just be your character now has like base +1 strength for every future run because you made like, so the light means you actually get like there's some progression even though you're doing run after run after run of whatever it is. There's like a side game of you get to the end of your run and you get a little bonus XP that you can spend somewhere. So that makes like future runs easier. That's roguelite. And roguelike is just play the same thing over and over and over again. No connection between the runs.
Right. Okay. That makes sense now.
I prefer roguelites because I like the connection between runs and like upgrading a character.
Yeah, agreed.
Funny, I like a game where I upgrade my character.
That's completely off-brand.
Yeah.
Well, for my part, my technical time is going to be super simple. I was talking about this before the episode, but my kiddo has hit a really fun age where she's just a sponge for music, and she's not too much of a teenager to like take her father's recommendations, which warms my heart. So among other music that I've showed her, she really, really clicked with a band that I did not expect, and that band is System of a Down. So I have been listening to a lot of System of a Down lately, and I have to say, I didn't expect it. A lot of new metal. I listen to it now, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I liked it when I was a teenager, not so much now. System of a Down just holds up. Oh, it holds up. Like, it's so very distinctive in sound. And I mentioned this too, like the lyrical, sociopolitical issues that they were talking about then are ever more poignant now, 20 years later. And I have even songs that I didn't enjoy that much when I was younger, now rediscovering. I have a new appreciation for them. Like, I wasn't always a giant fan of, which one is it? The kombucha mushroom people. Sugar. There we go. Yeah. It was fine. I never really liked it, but I really like that song.
I love it. It's a great driving song when I just want to go wild.
Yeah.
Weird.
Anyway.
We were talking about music before the show, like you mentioned. And Network said in chat that the art of making an album is dead. And disagree to a point. I think like there's still people that make albums, but it is a lot of singles and stuff now. But System of a Down, putting Mesmerize and Hypnotize together on one playlist and listening to that as it was designed to be a double album, just sold 6 months apart, like that as one piece. Like there's sounds from the beginning to the end of like it. Oh, it is a masterpiece.
It's so good. And that was the first, like I got rid of all my CD cases a long time ago and just put them all in a binder. That was one I kept because if you remember, both Mesmerize and Hypnotize, they slid together to actually form a double album. Yeah. And the art worked like, oh God, just such peak music design from a lot of different perspectives.
Yeah, I think like McDog mentioned in chat that like they weren't even really necessarily ever new metal. They just got lumped in with that. And like a few other bands are kind of like that. The ones that held up for me, like Deftones is another band that I still love that kind of got lumped into new metal, but they weren't ever quite new metal and got less so over time. So yeah.
Yeah, I could definitely see that argument. And maybe that's why they stand the test of time a little bit better than Trust Company.
If she likes System, Serge has some solo stuff too. That's pretty good. There's one where he performs his first album with a symphony backing him. Ooh. That is just, I will find you the link. It is
I'm
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, and also Darren, the guitarist from System, has his own band, Scars on Broadway, that they have some good stuff too. Yep.
Completely forgot about that. Okay, well let's close this up. Favorite System song? Like if you're gonna recommend one System song to someone, what is it? Mine, while you guys are thinking, mine is one that not a lot of people have heard, but off of Hypnotize, Dreaming is such a good song. It's got some really cool tonality, and the harmonies are cool, and the climax into the last chorus is just so cathartic. I cannot gush about that song enough. I love Dreaming.
Ooh, this is tough.
I want to say Soldier Side. The finishing of...
That's a good one.
The end of Hypnotize.
Yeah, because it just...
And the beginning of Mesmerize.
Yeah. No, wait. I'm thinking... No, Soldier Side is the end of...
Yeah, the full song is the end of Hypnotize. But it's also a shorter version of it is at the beginning of Mesmerize.
Yes.
And that's why they link together so well. You can play those two albums on loop. And from a production perspective, it continues. It's very, very cool.
Yeah, I think part of it is the fact that like it ends Mesmerize and Hypnotize. You know what I mean? Like I listened to that whole playlist and it ends on that Soldier Side, and it just, I don't know, I have a place in my heart. I'm sure we talked about this when we talked about Mother. But albums that have a great ending song that ends the album. And yeah, that one does it for me. So
yeah, I can see that.
It's
moment has come.
It's tough for me. There's so many, but I think Gun to Head, like Aerials, is just like it's like one of those songs that I just want to like float along with the melody. I can feel myself floating away from my body
in the sky. When you lose small mind, you free your life. Anyway, System of a Down. If you haven't listened to them in a while, go check them out. They friggin' hold up, man. It's such a good band. I'm kind of sad that they stopped making music, but also the music that they made is so tight. Like it's also not the worst thing in the world. All right. Oh yeah, that's right. And they released 2 new songs recently. A little bit more. If you want to feel old, go watch those music videos.
Oh, boy.
Those guys have aged 20 years, as humans do.
Time does pass.
But in my head, it's still 2005. All right. Anyway, well, call into the hotline. Check out March to Madness if you haven't already. And thank you, everyone, for joining us for episode 104 for Mythos Busters. We'll see you guys next time.